Welcome to Cut Daisies and Unicorns, the origin story. Everybody needs an origin story. Where did it come from? Where's it going? And so some people, when they hear the Cut Daisies and Unicorn label, they're like, I have no idea what this is going to be about. And that's the intrigue that we want to be able to bring people in, because this is where it started. We were sitting around and we knew, that we wanted to be able to put together a podcast. We started with the concepts of trying to, have people's stories, and we wanted people to tell their stories and what their passion is and what their vision is and how they were going to carry that. We want to hear from people. And so when we started doing that exploration, saying, so where's this going? How are we going to put this together? And I remember my friend Steve here, and he said, you know what, we're looking around for titles. He said, let's get weird with it. And
Pete Holmes.
You remember getting weird with it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was crazy about in that. And actually, it was around the time that the riots were occurring post the death of Mr. Floyd.
Mm-hmm.
And so then along with that, probably carried on one shoulder of shame, we had tossed around, what's your name, what's your story?
Mm-hmm.
And both of us have marched in the peaceful marches for the sake of Black Lives Matter. And there was almost a part in me that was shameful about two white guys sitting at a table, talking, telling stories, interviewing people, and that we were exploiting and coming around to turn a phrase that's said at the marches, say her name, and say his name, and it just started weighing heavy on me. And then as we got into looking and seeing different other podcasts that were maybe along those lines and stuff like that, it just gave me pause for, man, we're heading in a totally wrong direction with that. And so, hey, let's get weird.
Right. And so we did get weird with it.
I think so, but
because,
everybody we tell about it loves it.
Right.
I mean, but it's probably because anyone we've told it to knows us.
Mm-hmm.
And then at that point, they're like,
yeah, that makes sense.
Phil and Steve are together again.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so trying to be able to get people's stories before we have to memorialize, right? I mean,
that was the goal, is
right.
to celebrate life and to celebrate people of, all ethnicities, of all backgrounds, of all diversities.
Right.
And the other part is to another aspirational goal would be the idea of getting people to be able to listen to others that they probably wouldn't normally have crossed path experiences with.
Right. So I'm thinking, even on the title of it, Cut Daisies, meaning it's a daisy that was once alive, connected to the ground. Once it's cut, there's a shelf life.
Yeah.
And we know the human existence,
good word,
has a shelf life, right?
Yeah.
Like we don't know what that shelf life is,
right,
but we know it has a shelf life.
Which is really interesting in lieu of the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Is there is so much of our human existence that is unknown, and yet we think we know so much about our own human existence. But the pandemic has sent people into spirals because of the unknown of when this thing's going to be over or be done.
Right.
And then all of, I think another major degree of complication in it is people were going at such a sonic speed of living out life that to have to slow down that much, then they finally caught up with themselves. And if you're listening today and or at the time of your today and saying, wow, the framing of these words and how this is woven in is slightly strange, then I would say to you, welcome to Cut Daisies and Unicorns.
Hey, everybody.
And what I do know is that Phil and I are both gentlemen, and we certainly come with a disclaimer, and that is, you might listen to Cut Daisies and Unicorns, and you're like, this is a pile. I don't want to listen to any more of this. Actually, continue on your path and be love and peace. That's totally cool with us. There may be people listening and they're like, my friends, so good to have you back talking to each other and being able to listen to the silliness of how your minds work.
Right.
And at the bottom line, that is the bottom line. This is the silliness of how our minds work.
Right. Because then we bring in unicorns.
Oh, yeah.
And unicorns are the kind of I would say, that's my feeling towards it. A unicorn would be the pinnacle of like the mythical creatures. Whether, we can discuss the mythical part of it and did they exist? Do they exist? All that other stuff. But when we think about people and people being unicorns, like that's where, we're saying that every person has a part that is unknown. And what we're trying to be able to do is get it to be known.
And in a way that is really okay in regards to, we're not trying to pull people out of a shadow land and exploit or to use them in a way to create attention or in any way be undignified. But hopefully that in the conversations that we have, what we're able to do is we're able to move into a place where you, as the listener, as the watcher, seeing what is unfolding before you, that you would be able to gain something from someone else that may be absurdly strange to your existence. And yet it sheds light to a new facet of life, the life of humanity on this earth that you've never considered before. And I think it's the polarization of our current time that really weighs heavy on both of us.
Right.
In regards to, and a lot of that is, I wouldn't say that I'm Switzerland. I've got opinion.
Oh, yeah.
I've got biases.
Mm-hmm.
What I get afraid of is I get afraid of the section of humanity that says they have no bias.
Right.
And yet create a constant that moves into division. And so this is our platform. At the time, I newly moved into Chicagoland area, and Half Acre Brewing Company puts out a Daisy Cutter beer. And I know the reason I was drawn to it is because the daisies were on the can, and great marketing, by the way. Half Acre, kudos to you. Still not a sponsor.
Not yet a sponsor.
Not yet a sponsor. But daisies are my favorite flower ever, and so from Daisy Cutter to Cut Daisies, I thought, man, there's a play on words. And then you twist all that stuff around, and you move into the fleeting moments of humanity's existence, being embraced, celebrating in the moments that we do have, and anticipating. What a great thing to look forward to, that we get to celebrate another human's life and another human's existence and things like that. So that's part of our origin story.
It is. So it's going to be an adventure. And I believe, trying to we use a phrase, I don't know what I don't know.
Right.
And that's part of cutting into that dualism, cutting
Yeah.
into the,
Yeah.
my biases and being able to learn from somebody that's different
Yeah.
and to say, I'm going to be open to that.
Yeah.
Suspending reality to learn something that I don't know.
Yeah. And so, in a very light way, we would tease you about the idea of, we're going to talk about suspended reality a lot, because it really is a gateway into becoming more than we are. And by suspending our reality, whether it's scientifically proven, whether it's not scientifically proven, whether it's just something that I cooked up in my head and I'm like, yeah, and there's, people out there being like, you are so full of it. That's not how this works. I'm like, if anyone knows someone who is an expert on time travel, I'm in. I really need phone numbers and names, or at least an email address, because I'd like to have an educated conversation about that.
Right.
Because all of my conversations about time travel have nothing educated. I'm an experiential theologian, which means that I just apply what I believe to be true based on what I see to be true. And so if I believe in something that I don't see, this supreme deity, all right, if I believe in that, then I have to trust that this supreme being has allowed for those things that are around me as the ways, or one of the ways, that the supreme deity will be able to make itself known unto me. If I can explain away the supreme deity as everything that I do understand, it seems that the supreme deity isn't supreme at all, but only a deity made in my image. So enough of my existential mystic realm belief system and all that goes to that. But it is on those things. I think another origin point, and maybe you can conjure up some memories of times that we've shared together, is that actually Cut Daisies and Unicorns is a podcast based on a life practice that occurred, probably 8-9 years ago. As we were living in proximity, we would just go to places and hang out and meet people that we didn't know and ask them, hey, what's your story?
Right.
Yeah.
And it was always funny, the ways that people would flock. And not saying that, I don't know if we were drawing, but I feel like that was the case. Like, we would always run into something new,
Yep.
a new story, a new person. And then, sometimes it ended with, celebration and hugs and other times tears.
Yeah.
I don't know how it always led to certain places like that, but being open to learn something new about somebody else.
Yeah. I remember at the Gas Lamp, used to be Blues on Grand in Des Moines, we were sitting out in the back room, and there was this guy, had about 3 other people around him, and it was during the open mic night, and as we were there and he was singing songs and things like that, he started just kind of migrating our way, because we were talking with another couple at that time, and pretty soon he's sitting down at the table and we're having conversations and stuff like that, but he was actually from Chicago. And we just asked him, we're like, dude, what brought you to Des Moines? He goes, oh, I made a choice to live. And we're like, you made a choice to live? He goes, oh yeah, I strung out on heroin in Chicago. He goes, so easy to get a hold of. He goes, and I was just so deep into it. He goes, I came to Des Moines to get away. Talk about changing your friends, changing your playground. And he goes, I came to Des Moines to get off heroin. And it's just so funny, story after story. I remember when we were at 8035, and we're walking around. That was not the year of the Avett brothers, but it was this one year where I had started growing my beard out, and so we started taking beard selfies.
I remember.
If you want to see the review of all the beard selfies, you can go to my Instagram account, Earthen Warehouse, and you can scroll down through there and stuff like that. But it's so crazy. I'm sitting in the side parking lot of Stage B, and you know, I mean, I got, you know, my chuck's kicked out, and I'm taking pictures and doing whatever and stuff, and a dude with this big old long beard shows up, and come to find out, he's from Kansas City, but he married a lady who had worked in the church that I had worked at a decade before that. And so, you know, Liz and Corey came. We made introductions. He got pictures of them and all this stuff. And I hadn't seen her for like 10 years or whatever, you know, and stuff. It's just like, you just wander through and talk with people who are open for conversation.
Right. And trying to get to people who even at first glance would be pretty closed. Just trying to be able to ask more questions and dig into it.
Yeah. So that's our origin story.
It is.
Yeah. Cut Daisies.
We're looking forward to making the journey with all of you and having the conversations and even getting you to a place where you're saying, I want to learn more about other people.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially in lieu of that, in our current present of what our experience is, what we find is that it's our perception of what that moment is. It's when we get outside of ourselves to take in the perception of someone else that we're able to move into an area that's not within ourselves. And at this point, there are listeners who are like, what in the world does that mean? And I would say, oh, you need to check out our first full episode of 2021 as we get more into time travel, our current state. How does the history of what we've experienced influence the future of what we will become? And how that in the moment that we're at, if we practice in this present, understanding how we're informed by our past, that we're actually playing the part of our future in our present time.
Just twisting it all up. That's where we're going.
It ain't no black hole, but it might be a vortex. All right. Well, hey, thanks everybody for listening.
Yeah, we're looking forward to connecting.
Hey, so if they wanted to connect, did we already talk about that? I don't think so.
Yeah, so there's multiple ways that you can connect with us. We're going to have Facebook page, Cut Daisies and Unicorns. We will have a website, Cut Daisies and Unicorns. We have a YouTube channel, Cut Daisies and Unicorns. And here's the thing for the audio podcast, because it'll also be audio and video. For the audio podcast, you're going to look for wherever you get your podcast from, whether it's Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Amazon Music or Google Play. I mean, they've got to have some channel. There's like a million of them out there. Wherever you find it, we're going to be, I would say 95% sure that we're going to be on every platform.
All right. So that's where you can find us. That's how you can find us. And really, just to let you know, if you listen to one of the trailers, we're actually not lost. But you can find us at any of those places. So with that, we bid you adieu. Have a great moment that you're in.
Take care.